once again. Welcome to Fred's Footy Fest, and today we'll be looking at round 6 of the NRL Premiership. So to kick us off, we have a clash tonight, between the Melbourne Storm and the Sydney Roosters. Now, last week the Melbourne Storm got a win against the Rabbitohs by 8 points, whereas the Roosters also got a win against the Eels by 8 points. So you'd think this is going to be a close game. However, the Storm have Jerome Hughes back in the team, whereas the Roosters have suffered a major loss in James Tedesco being injured for 2 weeks. So I think that narrows it down enough to say that I think the Storm will win this one. I'm going to say 12 points because it may be a close game. However, I think the Storm should win pretty comfortably. Friday at 4:05 is a clash between the Bulldogs and the Rabbitohs on Good Friday. So, last week the Bulldogs snatched a win against the Cowboys in Golden Point with a Matt Burton field goal that was not expected to happen. Whereas the Rabbitohs, on the other hand, lost to the Storm in a close game. I think the Rabbitohs should bounce back from last week, as they're going to be a good side this year and they're pretty consistent too. Whereas the Bulldogs don't really win and they're pretty inconsistent. So I think the Rabbitohs should get the job done. 8 o'clock on Friday night is a clash between the Cowboys and the Dolphins. Now, Cowboys have Scott Drinkwater back from suspension, so that'll give them a boost. Whereas the Dolphins are not only missing out on Sean O'Sullivan, but they're also missing out on Anthony Milford. So they're going to really struggle now, the Dolphins. So I think I'll easily have to tip the Cowboys. Even though they lost in Golden Point against the Bulldogs, I think they should get the job done pretty easily here. As if the Dragons can beat the Dolphins, I think any team can. So I'll have to tip the Cowboys. At 5:30 is a blockbuster clash between the Panthers and Manly. Two good sides. Manly last week drew with the Knights 32-all, which was very disappointing for the club, seeing as they had big expectations for this year. Whereas the Panthers are pretty much picking up from where they left off last year, flogging the Raiders 53-12 last week. Massive win. I think I can easily tip the Panthers for this one, because if Manly continue from what they did last week, I can't see them doing any well this season. And it's pretty disappointing, as I said, because they have high expectations. But against the reigning champions, I think this will be a walk in the park for Panthers. 7:35, Suncorp Stadium. There's a clash between the Broncos and the Raiders. To start us off, I'm going to tip the Broncos easy. They're about to go 6-0 for this one. So I think they'll just flog the Raiders easy. Raiders, they're not a very good side at all, and I can't see them winning at all really this season. They've lost to the Knights, so that's really disappointing as it is. And they got flogged by Penrith last week, so I think they're just going to get flogged again by the Broncos. So I think I'll have to easily tip the Broncos for this one. So, because they're going to be a really great side this year, and they've got finals footy in their side, so I'll have to tip the Broncos. Moving on Sunday is a clash between the Titans and the Dragons. Now, last time this year when these two teams burst, I ended up tipping the Titans, thinking that they were going to be a pretty good side this year. However, I was wrong, because the Dragons flogged them. So I think I'm going to have to tip the Dragons. And not only that, but they flogged the Dolphins last week, whereas the Titans had the bye. So I think I have to tip the Dragons. And the final game on Sunday is a clash between the Knights and the Warriors. Now, I think I'll have to tip the Warriors this one. They're sitting second place on the ladder. And from what they did last week, they were down 20-0 and they came back and beat the Sharks 32-30. That's incredible. I've never seen anything like that. Whereas the Knights drew with Manly, but after Warriors' effort last week, I think I'll have to give them the credit by tipping them this week. And the final game is going to be on a Monday, being a long weekend for Easter. And we all know what happened in this game last year. Jackson Hastings took the field goal and won it for the Tigers, their first win of the season, and a massive upset for the Eels. However, Jackson Hastings is no longer at the Tigers now. And not only that, but another long weekend where footy was on a Monday, the Eels played the Bulldogs and also lost. So we don't know with this game, because the Eels have a bit of a curse where they lose on long weekends. But I'm honestly going to tip them this time. I think they can break the curse, because the Tigers, they've been a pretty poor club so far this year, still remain winless and were thumped by the ladder leaders, the Broncos. So I think the Eels can get this job done here and be finals contenders. And that's my tips for this week, folks. Tune in next week for some other great games, and I'll tell you some of them. Thursday night is the Dolphins and the Rabbitohs. This might be a pretty good game to watch. Sharks and Roosters, that'll be a close one. Battle of Brookvale, that's always a good one to watch. The Titans will play the Broncos, Queensland Derby, and the Tigers will get the bye.
Fantastic.
And honestly, I think the Tigers will need the bye if they continue their losses. And that's all from this week, folks. Tune in next week for some other great games. Bye.